"Hey, you back there, the one in the maintenance uniform." Sienna Vale's voice cracked across the Orpheum Theater like a glass shard. 500 donors turned in sync. The livestream camera swung. Comments exploded. 2 million strangers suddenly stared at one man who wasn't supposed to be seen at all. If you love stories where the underdog flips the whole room upside down, tap subscribe right now. Because the next 15 minutes are going to get messy, loud, and unbelievably satisfying. Eli Mercer stood by the backstage curtain with a mop handle still in his grip, yellow gloves still on his hands. He had finished polishing the stage 10 minutes ago. He was already thinking about the bus schedule, the hospital visiting hours, the way his daughter's fingers always curled when she slept. But now the spotlight found him. He froze. Sienna smiled, sweet and poisonous. "Come here," she said, curling a finger like she was calling a dog. Eli took one step, then another. Each footfall felt like a verdict. A staffer tried to intervene. Sienna lifted her mic. "No, no, it's fine. We're doing something special tonight." The band, perched behind her in black suits, looked uncertain. Sienna leaned toward the music director and snapped once, sharp, impatient. "Play Glass Heaven." From the bridge. A murmur rolled through the audience. That song was her signature, the one with the famous ceiling note that people swore no human being could hit without breaking. The note that made her Sienna Vale. Eli reached center stage. The heat of the lights washed his face. The rubber gloves squeaked when he tightened his fists. "I'm sorry," he started, voice low. "I didn't mean to." "Don't," Sienna cut in, still smiling. "No excuses. Let's see if you can sing or if you're just taking up space." Laughter, small, sharp, expensive, skittered across the front rows. Eli's stomach turned. Behind the theater walls, he imagined a fluorescent hospital hallway. He pictured a tiny chest rising too fast, a heart working too hard. On the big screen behind Sienna, the charity montage began. Children with heart defects, nurses in blue scrubs, doctors holding clipboards. Then, just for a second, Eli saw her. Maya, his 6-year-old with her crooked smile and the scar-free chest that wouldn't stay scar-free much longer. His throat locked. Sienna stepped closer. She turned her head slightly away from her mic like she was being kind, like she was sharing a private moment. But Eli's mic was live. Her whisper slid straight into the theater speakers and every phone watching at home. "Fail gently, Janitor." Eli's blood went cold. The band hovered on the edge of the downbeat. Sienna raised her brows as if daring him to run. But Eli didn't run. He didn't look at Sienna. He looked at Maya's picture still fading on the screen. And something inside him, something that had been buried under grief, shifts, and overdue bills, sat up and opened its eyes. Eli reached up slowly. He peeled off one yellow glove, then the other. He set them on the stage like he was laying down a life he'd been forced to wear, and he took the microphone, not to sing, not yet, to speak. "Before we do this," Eli said, voice steady enough to surprise even him, "I have one question for Miss Vale." Sienna's smile thinned. "Oh," Eli turned toward the sound booth, then back to the crowd. "Can you turn off the backing track?" The room stopped breathing. Sienna blinked once too slow. And in that single blink, Eli realized the truth. She hadn't called him up here to humiliate him. She'd called him up here because she was terrified of what he might have already heard. We rewind 4 hours, back to the rehearsal where Eli hears something that doesn't match Sienna's legendary voice, and discovers why this charity gala might be a lie built on stolen sound. 4 hours earlier, the Orpheum Theater smelled like lemon cleaner, dust, and money. Eli Mercer pushed his cart down the east corridor, the mop bucket wheels rattling softly so they wouldn't echo into the auditorium. Rehearsals were supposed to be closed, but when donors paid 6 figures for velvet seats, rules bent quietly. He didn't mind. Overtime meant another night covered, another night closer to Maya's surgery fund. On stage, Sienna Vale was already there, silhouette sharp against the work lights, wrapped in a silk robe the color of fresh bruises. The band sat below her, instruments resting, waiting. Eli kept his head down. He always did. "From the top of the bridge," Sienna called. "No harmonies, clean." The music director nodded. Track ready. Eli paused behind the black curtain as the first piano notes floated up, soft, glassy, familiar, glass heaven. He'd heard it everywhere, grocery stores, hospital lobbies, elevators that smelled like antiseptic and fear. Sienna lifted her mic, but before she sang, something else happened. A voice filled the theater, not from the stage, from the speakers. Strong, raw, unpolished in a way that felt honest. The kind of voice that scraped and soared at the same time. Eli's spine straightened. That wasn't Sienna. She opened her mouth and matched the sound perfectly, riding the track like she'd been born inside it. The famous ceiling note rang out clean as crystal. The band applauded automatically. Perfect, the music director said. Sienna lowered her mic and rolled her shoulders. Again, she said, same way. Eli's heart began to pound. He waited. The piano cue restarted. And again, before Sienna sang, the same voice came through the speakers. Not quite identical, close but fuller, braver, like someone who had nothing left to lose. Eli stepped closer to the sound booth window. Inside, a technician leaned over the console, eyes fixed on the levels. Eli swallowed. Hey, he whispered. Sorry, a quick question. The tech glanced back, annoyed. Yeah, who's singing on the track? The tech frowned. What track? Eli pointed. That one, the vocal. The tech's fingers froze. Silence stretched too long. Then he muttered, You're not supposed to be back here. Eli's stomach dropped. Before he could respond, Sienna's voice snapped through the monitors. Is there a problem? The tech straightened instantly. No, all good. Sienna's eyes flicked toward the booth, toward Eli. For half a second, something dark crossed her face, calculation, not irritation. She smiled. Let's take 5, she said. I need water. As the band relaxed, the tech leaned toward Eli and hissed, Do yourself a favor, forget what you heard. Eli shook his head slowly. That voice, he said. It's not hers. The tech exhaled through his nose. Kid, he said quietly, do you know how many careers are built on things people aren't meant to notice? Sienna stepped off stage, heels clicking. She stopped inches from Eli, close enough that he could smell expensive citrus perfume. Maintenance, she said gently. You clean very well. Thank you, Eli replied automatically. She tilted her head. I'd hate for you to misunderstand your role here. Their eyes locked. Then she smiled wider. Enjoy the show tonight. She walked away. Eli stood frozen as the truth settled into his bones. The most celebrated voice in the country wasn't just enhanced. It was borrowed. And somehow, without knowing how, Eli knew that borrowed voice was about to cost someone everything. Eli follows the sound file to its source and discovers a name buried so deep in the credits it was never meant to be found. Eli didn't sleep that afternoon. He lay on his couch with the lights off, Maya's stuffed rabbit pressed against his chest, the rehearsal replaying in his head like a skipped record. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the voice again, not Sienna's polished perfection, but the other one, the real one. By 6 p.m., he gave up pretending rest would come. He showered, dressed, and returned to the Orpheum 2 hours early. The evening staff nodded at him, barely registering his presence. That was the advantage of being invisible. No one asked why you were there. Eli rolled his cart past the loading dock and slipped toward the sound booth. The door was locked. He stared at it, heart thudding. He wasn't a hacker. He wasn't a thief. He cleaned floors and emptied bins. He followed rules because rules kept the world predictable. But predictability hadn't saved Maya. He knocked softly. No answer. He tried the handle. Unlocked. Inside, the booth smelled like warm electronics and stale coffee. Screens glowed quietly. The console lights pulsed like a living thing. Eli hesitated, then sat. He didn't know what he was doing, but curiosity, once ignited, was louder than fear. He scanned the open session on the main monitor. Track names scrolled past. Piano main, strings pad, Sienna Vox live. Then he saw it. Muted, hidden low in the mix. Alt Vox master final wav. His breath caught. He clicked. The waveform filled the screen, dense, alive, imperfect. He pressed play. The voice poured into his headphones, unfiltered. No crowd, No reverb, no Sienna, just pain and power and breath. Eli's eyes burned. The singer didn't sound famous. She sounded hungry, like someone who had sung in empty rooms and meant every note anyway. He scrolled down. Metadata, credits. Most fields were blank, but one line remained. Vocalist. Elric. Eli whispered it aloud. Lena Rourke. The name meant nothing to him, which somehow made it worse. Footsteps echoed outside the booth. Eli yanked the headphones off and froze as the door opened. The same technician from rehearsal stepped in, coffee in hand. He stopped short when he saw Eli in the chair. "Oh hell," he muttered. "I told you, I just want to know who she is," Eli said, standing. "Lena Rourke, that's her voice, right?" The tech closed the door behind him. His shoulders sagged. "Yeah," he said quietly, "it's her." "Where is she?" The tech laughed once, humorless. "Where do voices like that usually end up?" Eli didn't answer. "She was a session singer," the tech continued. "Small gigs, studio work. She cut a demo years ago, label shelved it. Sienna's team bought the rights cheap, real cheap." "That's stealing," Eli said. The tech met his eyes. "It's business." Eli shook his head. "Does she know?" The tech looked away. "She signed. Needed the money." "For what?" Silence. Then softly, "Medical bills." Eli's chest tightened. "Heart condition," the tech added. "Her kid." The world tilted. Eli backed up a step, the booth suddenly too small. "So Sienna's charity," he said slowly. "The kids she's saving." The tech nodded once. "Same illness, different faces." A voice cut through the hallway outside, bright, amused. "Everything ready, Sienna." The tech straightened instantly. "Yeah, just rapping." Eli stared at the waveform still glowing on the screen. Borrowed voice, borrowed pain, borrowed story. As Sienna's heels approached the booth door, Eli understood something with terrifying clarity. This wasn't about singing. This was about who got to survive, and who was supposed to stay silent while others took credit for their breath. Eli tracks down Lena Rourke and learns why she disappeared just weeks before Sienna's rise to superstardom. Eli found Lena Rourke in a place that didn't make sense for a voice like hers. The community center basement smelled of old books, burnt coffee, and cleaning solution that never quite erased the past. Folding chairs scraped against the tile floor as people shuffled in, clutching paperwork and worn hope. Eli stood at the door, unsure. A handwritten sign read, "Free Legal AID, Wednesdays 7-9 p.m." Lena sat near the back. Not singing, not speaking, just staring at the floor, hands wrapped around a cracked phone like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. She looked smaller than her voice sounded. Dark hair pulled into a messy knot. Hoodie 2 sizes too big. The kind of woman people learn to step around, not toward. Eli approached slowly. "Lena Rourke?" he asked. She flinched. "No," she said immediately. "You've got the wrong person." "I heard your voice," Eli said softly. That made her look up. Her eyes were sharp, guarded, exhausted, furious. "Where?" she demanded. "At the Orpheum." Her jaw clenched. Eli raised both hands. "I'm not with them." "Then you shouldn't be here," she snapped. "You should walk away." "I can't," Eli said. "My daughter's sick." That stopped her. She studied his face, really studied it, the lines of stress, the quiet desperation. "What does that have to do with me?" she asked. "Because the charity funding her treatment," Eli said, choosing each word carefully, "is built on your voice." Lena laughed. It wasn't funny, it was raw and broken. "Of course it is." She stood abruptly, grabbing her bag. "I told them not to use it, I told them I was done." Eli followed her into the hallway. "Then why did you sign?" She stopped. Her shoulders sagged. "My son," she said. "Owen, he needed surgery, now not let's wait and see. Not maybe insurance will." Her voice cracked. She swallowed. "They put a contract in front of me, said I'd never have to sing it live. Said it was just for reference, said no one would know." "They always say that," Eli murmured. Lena turned on him. "You don't get it, I lost my voice 2 years ago." Eli blinked. "What?" "Surgery complication," she said bitterly. "Damage, I can still talk. I can still sing a little, but not like before. That recording," she tapped her chest. "That was my last clean take, ever." The words landed like a punch. "So they're not just using your voice," Eli said. They're using your last one, Lena nodded. Why now? Eli asked. Why did Sienna call me out tonight? Lena's expression darkened. Because I sent a letter, she said. I asked for my credit back, just my name. I didn't want money, and they ignored me. Eli thought of Sienna's smile, the fear beneath it. She knows, he said, and she's scared. Lena laughed again, this time hollow. Good. Eli hesitated. They're going to humiliate me on stage. Lena tilted her head. Then why are you smiling? Because I heard the truth, Eli said, and so did you. She studied him for a long moment. What are you suggesting? She asked carefully. Eli exhaled. That the loudest place in the city might finally hear the quietest voice. Lena's hands trembled. Once that happens, she said, there's no going back. Eli nodded. I know. They stood in the narrow hallway, two parents bound by failing hearts and stolen sound. Outside, sirens wailed. Inside, something dangerous took shape. The gala begins, and Sienna makes a move that forces Eli to choose between saving his daughter's future and exposing the truth in front of the world. The gala began exactly on time. Crystal chandeliers blazed to life above the Orpheum, washing the room in gold and illusion. Donors filled the aisles in tailored suits and jeweled dresses, laughter floating as lightly as the champagne bubbles. Cameras slid across the crowd, phones lifted. The livestream counter climbed fast. Backstage, Eli stood by the equipment rack, heart hammering. Lena sat in the shadows near the stage door, hood pulled low, hands clenched in her lap. She hadn't changed her mind, but fear kept tightening its grip minute by minute. A stage manager passed Eli and paused. You Mercer? Eli nodded. Sienna wants to see you. Now. Lena's head snapped up. No, she whispered. Don't go. Eli squeezed her shoulder. I'll be careful. He followed the manager to Sienna's dressing room. Inside, everything was white and perfect. Mirrors ringed with lights, roses in glass vases, a silk robe draped like a throne. Sienna stood at the mirror, adjusting her earrings. She didn't turn around. You have a very inconvenient curiosity, she said calmly. Eli said nothing. She smiled at her reflection. That voice you heard, it belongs to me now. Legally, financially, publicly. It belongs to Lena, Eli replied. Sienna finally faced him. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. It belongs to whoever the world believes. She stepped closer and lowered her voice. You want your daughter to live, don't you? The words struck like ice water. Eli stiffened. Don't talk about her. Sienna held up her phone. On the screen, a donation dashboard, numbers rolling upward. I can make one call, she said. A very generous call, enough to fast-track her surgery. Best hospital, best doctors. Eli's mouth went dry. All you have to do, Sienna continued, is forget what you think you know. Finish your shift. Go home. Silence stretched between them. Eli thought of Maya's laugh, her small hand gripping his finger, the way machines beeped when her heart raced too fast. You're asking me to trade truth for time, he said. Sienna tilted her head. Isn't that what parents do every day? Eli looked at the mirror behind her. He saw himself in the reflection, maintenance uniform, tired eyes, a man no one listened to. Then he imagined Maya growing up in a world where voices like Lena's were erased quietly, politely, legally. No, he said. Sienna's smile vanished. You're making a mistake, she said coldly. Eli shook his head. I'm making a choice. She stared at him for a long moment, then laughed softly. You think the crowd will care? They came to worship, not to question. They came to listen, Eli said. That's enough. Sienna stepped aside and opened the door. Then enjoy the spotlight. Backstage again, the opening notes of the gala theme swelled. Lena stood, eyes wide. What did she say? Eli met her gaze. She tried to buy my silence. Lena swallowed. And I said no. The lights dimmed. Applause roared. Sienna's voice rang out as she took the stage, bright, flawless, borrowed. Lena trembled. Once she starts the song. I know, Eli said. He reached into his pocket and felt the flash drive warm from his hand. On stage, Sienna smiled and raised her mic. And now, she said to the crowd, a very special moment. Her eyes flicked toward Eli. Let's make history. Sienna calls Eli onto the stage, and the trap she sets is designed to destroy him before he can speak a single word. The applause hadn't even settled when Sienna lifted her hand for silence. Her smile widened, radiant, rehearsed, lethal. "Tonight," she said, "is about generosity, about ordinary people doing extraordinary things." She paused, letting the words ripple through the room. "And I'd like to invite someone very special to help me demonstrate that." Her gaze locked onto Eli. The spotlight snapped to life before he could move. A murmur swept the audience as heads turned. The livestream chat surged, questions, jokes, laughing emojis. Eli's pulse roared in his ears. Lena whispered from the shadows, "This is it." Eli stepped forward. Every instinct screamed to run, but his feet carried him up the steps and onto the stage. The heat of the lights pressed down on him, flattening time. He could feel 500 eyes and millions more beyond the lens. Sienna gestured grandly. "This is Eli Mercer. He works tirelessly behind the scenes to keep this theater shining." Polite applause followed, scattered, curious. "He told me earlier," Sienna continued, "that he loves to sing." Eli turned toward her sharply. She leaned closer, voice honeyed. "Don't worry, I won't make you do anything you can't handle." The band chuckled nervously. She handed him a microphone. Eli took it but didn't raise it. Sienna signaled the band. "From the bridge," she said sweetly. "Let's hear if talent really can come from anywhere." The piano cue began. Eli knew what she was doing now. If he sang and failed, he'd be a joke. If he refused, he'd look bitter and ungrateful. Either way, the crowd would turn on him before he could say a word. Sienna stepped back, arms crossed, queen awaiting her proof. Eli inhaled slowly. The first note of the backing track bloomed through the speakers. The borrowed voice, clear, powerful. Lena's, the audience sighed in anticipation. Eli didn't sing, he lowered the mic. "Before we do this," he said calmly, "I need to ask a question." A ripple of confusion spread. Sienna's smile twitched. "Eli, let's not ruin the moment." "It's already ruined," Eli replied quietly. He turned toward the sound booth. "Can we isolate the backing vocal?" The band faltered. The pianist's hands hovered. The music director looked helplessly at Sienna. She laughed lightly. "He's nervous. Aren't you, Eli?" Eli didn't look at her. "I'm nervous," he said, "because the voice you're about to applaud doesn't belong to the woman holding the microphone." A hush fell. Sienna's eyes hardened. "Cut his mic." It didn't cut. Eli continued, louder now. "That voice belongs to a singer named Lena Rourke." Gasps rippled through the front rows. Sienna stepped forward, voice sharp. "This is inappropriate." "It's overdue," Eli said. He reached into his pocket. The flash drive felt heavier than it should have. "In a moment," Eli said to the crowd, "you're going to hear the same song without Sienna Vale." The audience stirred, uncertain but captivated. Sienna's mask cracked. "If you do this," she hissed under her breath, "you'll never work again." Eli met her eyes. "Neither will she," he said softly. The tech in the booth hesitated. Then slowly his fingers moved. The backing track cut. Silence slammed into the room. Eli stood center stage, heart pounding as the world leaned forward. The real voice fills the theater, and Sienna makes a desperate move that threatens to shut everything down. The silence lasted 3 full seconds. It felt like a lifetime. Then the speakers breathed, not with music but with a voice. Raw, close, human, Lena's, no polish, no echo, just breath, ache, and truth pouring straight into the Orpheum's bones. The opening line of Glass Heaven filled the space and something shifted instantly. Conversations died mid-thought. Phones stopped shaking. Even the live stream chat slowed, stunned into stillness. Eli didn't move. Neither did Sienna. The voice climbed effortlessly into the bridge, not perfect, better than perfect. It wavered in places where pain lived. It cracked where survival pressed hardest. The audience felt it. You could see it on their faces, the confusion giving way to recognition, the way people lean forward when something real reaches them. Sienna turned sharply toward the sound booth. "Cut it," she snapped. The tech didn't move. The music director stared at the stage, mouth slightly open. Sienna strode toward Eli, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "You think this ends well for you?" Eli didn't answer. On the screen behind them, the charity montage had frozen on a single image. A little boy with dark curls, wires taped to his chest. Owen, Lena's son. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Sienna followed the audience's gaze and went pale. "That's not part of the program," she hissed. Eli turned to the crowd. "The singer you're hearing tonight recorded this song years ago," he said. "She sold the rights because her child needed heart surgery." Whispers exploded. Sienna lunged for the mic stand. "This is slander." Eli stepped back just enough to keep speaking. "The charity is real. The illness is real. But the voice you're applauding was never hers." The song soared into the ceiling note. The note everyone came for, and it didn't break. It burned. The room erupted not in applause but in shock. Sienna's composure shattered. "Security," she barked. Two guards rushed the stage. Before they reached Eli, a woman stood up in the front row, then another, then a man near the aisle. "Let it play," someone shouted. "We want to hear it," another voice called. Phones lifted higher. The livestream count doubled. Sienna spun, panicked. "This event is over." The song ended, not with drama, with a breath. A quiet, exhausted exhale that felt like the truth finally being set down. Silence followed, thick, reverent. Then applause crashed through the theater, not polite, not worshipful, honest. Eli closed his eyes. Somewhere backstage he heard a sob. "Lena." Sienna grabbed the mic, voice trembling. "You've been misled," she said quickly. "This man is a disgruntled employee." A donor near the aisle stood. "Is the voice hers or not?" Sienna faltered. The pause was enough. The room turned. Eli felt it. The moment power shifted not with shouting but with clarity. Sienna backed toward the wings, face tight, calculating her escape. Eli looked toward the curtain. Lena stepped into the light. No makeup, no microphone, just her. The applause grew louder. And for the first time in years, Lena Rourke was seen. Sienna fights back, with lawyers, contracts, and a threat that could erase everything Eli just revealed. The applause didn't stop when Lena stepped forward. It changed. It softened, became something warmer, heavier. Less about spectacle, more about recognition. The kind of sound people make when they realize they've been lied to and don't want to be complicit anymore. Sienna didn't clap. She smiled. It was a dangerous smile, the kind that meant she'd already shifted battlefields. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said smoothly, lifting her mic again, "I appreciate your passion, but passion doesn't change contracts." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Lena froze. Sienna turned toward her, voice almost gentle. "Lena Rourke sold exclusive rights to that recording. Every note, every breath. You remember signing, don't you?" Lena swallowed. "I remember being desperate," Sienna shrugged. "Desperation doesn't void legality." She gestured toward the wings. Two men in suits appeared, lawyers unmistakably so. One carried a leather folder. "This performance," Sienna continued, "was an unauthorized use of intellectual property. Anyone involved will be hearing from my legal team." Boos rose from the back rows. Sienna ignored them. She turned her gaze back to Eli. "Including you." Eli felt a chill run through him, but he didn't step back. "You threatened my daughter," he said calmly. "On record." Sienna's smile tightened. "I offered help." "You offered silence," Eli replied. One of the lawyers stepped forward. "This event will proceed as scheduled. Security will escort unauthorized individuals off the premises." The guards advanced again, this time straight for Lena. Eli moved instinctively, placing himself between them. "Don't," he said. The guards hesitated. The room held its breath. Then a voice cut through the tension. "Actually, do stop." The speaker stood near the aisle, phone still raised. She wore a blazer with a press badge clipped to the lapel. "Maribel Chen, Independent Arts Review," she said loudly. "And I believe the audience would like to know why Miss Vale's contracts were amended 6 months ago to remove live performance clauses." Sienna stiffened. Maribel continued, unfazed. "Specifically, the clause that would have required proof of vocal ownership." The whispers turned sharp. Eli stared at the reporter. He hadn't known that. Sienna recovered quickly. "That's proprietary, but public," Maribel interrupted, tapping her phone. Filed during a settlement you sealed. Funny timing, considering that's when your voice started sounding different. Lena's breath caught. Sienna snapped, "This is harassment." "No," Marable said evenly. "This is documentation." The second lawyer leaned toward Sienna, whispering urgently. For the first time all night, Sienna looked uncertain. The donors watched closely now, not dazzled but alert, evaluating, recalculating. Eli felt the shift again. Sienna raised her chin. "Even if the voice isn't mine," she said sharply, "the charity has saved lives." "Including mine," Eli said. "And hers," Lena added softly. Sienna looked at them, really looked this time, and something ugly surfaced beneath her polish. "You think this ends with applause?" she asked. "You've just made enemies who don't lose." Eli met her gaze. "Neither do parents." Sirens wailed faintly outside. More cameras appeared. Sienna exhaled through her teeth. "Clear the stage." The lawyers pulled back, already dialing. The guards stepped away. The gala hadn't ended, but it had broken open. And everyone in the room knew it. The fallout begins. Donations freeze. Sponsors panic, and Eli gets a phone call that forces him to confront the real cost of telling the truth. The gala never officially ended. It dissolved. Clusters of donors whispered fiercely near the aisles. Sponsors slipped out with phones pressed to their ears. The livestream fractured into clips, reposts, and arguments that multiplied faster than anyone could control. Backstage, Eli leaned against a concrete wall, his knees finally giving in. The adrenaline drained, leaving behind shaking hands and a dull ache behind his eyes. Lena sat beside him, arms wrapped around herself. "I didn't think they'd let it play," she whispered. "I didn't think they'd listen," Eli admitted. Across the hall, Sienna's dressing room door slammed. Raised voices followed, lawyers, managers, someone crying in rage. Then Eli's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, almost. "Hello," he said. "Mr. Mercer," a woman's voice, professional, clipped. "This is Dr. Havorson from St. Jude Metro Cardiac." Eli's heart stopped. "Yes," he said hoarsely. This is Maya's father. We've been reviewing her file," the doctor continued. "There's been a change." Eli pressed his back harder into the wall. "Is she?" "She's stable," Dr. Havorson said quickly. "But the window for optimal surgery is narrowing." Eli closed his eyes. "We were informed," the doctor continued, "that a significant donation tied to her case has been paused." Paused. The word echoed. "I understand," Eli said slowly, "that this may be related to tonight's event." "Yes," the doctor said gently. "Which is why I'm calling. I need to know, are alternative funds coming?" Eli thought of Sienna's offer, the certainty in her voice, the ease with which she could have fixed this. "I don't know yet," he said honestly. There was a pause on the line. "Then we need to prepare for delays," the doctor said. "I'm sorry." The call ended. Eli slid down until he was sitting on the floor. Lena stared at him. "What happened?" "The donation," he said, voice hollow. "It's frozen." Her face fell. "Eli, it's not your fault," he said quickly. "This was always the price." Lena looked at the floor. "I didn't think the price would be this fast." Across the hall, Marable Chen approached, phone still recording. "I'm not here to exploit this," she said quietly. "But you should know, 3 sponsors just pulled out. 2 others are demanding audits." "Is that good?" Lena asked. "It's chaos," Marable replied, "which means truth has room to breathe." Eli laughed softly. "Truth doesn't pay hospital bills." Marable hesitated. "It sometimes does. Just slower." A volunteer rushed past them. "They're shutting down the donation kiosks," she said breathlessly. "People are asking where the money actually went." Lena's phone buzzed, then buzzed again. She looked down and froze. "What?" Eli asked. "My email," she said. "I just got 3 messages." She handed him the phone. One from a small label, one from an investigative podcast, one from a nonprofit foundation specializing in pediatric heart research. Eli read the last subject line twice. "We heard your voice. Let's talk." Lena's hands trembled. "Is this real?" Eli nodded slowly. "I think this is the beginning." Lena let out a shaky breath. "But what about Maya?" Eli stared at the floor, then at the screen lighting up with notifications. I don't know, he said, but I know this: if I had stayed quiet, nothing would have changed. Outside, the sirens grew louder. Inside, the first cracks in a carefully built empire widened. And somewhere in that chaos, the truth started doing what it always does, looking for a way through. The internet turns the story into a battlefield, and Sienna launches a counterattack that threatens to rewrite the night entirely. By morning, the story no longer belonged to anyone. It belonged to the internet. Clips of the gala flooded every platform, some cropped, some slowed, some drenched in commentary. One version painted Eli as a hero. Another framed him as a bitter employee sabotaging a good cause. Sienna's team moved fast, seeding doubt like a virus. Eli woke to his phone vibrating nonstop. Headlines blurred past. Charity gala sabotaged, BY staff member exclusive. Contracts prove Sienna Vale did nothing wrong. Who is Lena Rourke? The voice behind the scandal. He shut the phone off. At the kitchen table, Maya colored quietly, tongue peeking out in concentration. Her chest rose too quickly. The monitor beeped softly beside her. You okay, Daddy? She asked without looking up. Eli forced a smile. Always. Across the city, Sienna sat in a glass conference room, her image reflected a dozen times over. Screens lined the walls, each showing a different narrative being spun. We release the statement now, her lead publicist said. Sympathy angle, emphasize charity impact. Sienna nodded once. And the maintenance worker, discredit, financial motive, emotional instability. Good, Sienna said coolly. Make him loud and unreliable. The statement went live at noon. Sienna appeared tearful, grateful, wronged. Within minutes, the tide shifted. Eli's phone buzzed again, this time with messages he couldn't ignore. You should have stayed in your lane. Hope the attention was worth it. People like you don't win. Then another call, this one from his supervisor. Eli, the man said awkwardly, I'm sorry, but corporate wants distance. Effective immediately, you're suspended pending review. Suspended. Eli hung up slowly. Lena arrived an hour later, eyes red but fierce. She's lying, she said, and people are believing her. Eli nodded. She's better at it. Lena pulled out her phone, but she made one mistake. She opened a file. Audio. I recorded our meeting, Lena said. The one where they pressured me to sign. Eli listened. Sienna's voice, unfiltered, cold, filled the room. No one cares who sings, they care who survives the spotlight. Eli's jaw tightened. That's it. Lena shook her head. It's not enough alone, we need timing. As if summoned, Maribel Chen called. She's flooding the zone, Maribel said. But contracts don't erase patterns. I'm pulling her financial trail. Will it help Maya? Eli asked quietly. There was a pause. I don't know, Maribel admitted. But it might help a lot of other kids. Eli stared at his daughter, then he made a decision. Release the audio, he said. Lena hesitated. If we do this, there's no safety net. Eli smiled sadly. There never was. They uploaded the clip. Within minutes it began to spread. Sienna's polished narrative cracked just enough, but not before she made her next move. Eli's phone rang again. Private number, he answered. Enjoy your moment, Sienna said softly, because tomorrow I end you. Sienna's final play unfolds, and Eli learns how far power will go when it starts to lose its grip. The next morning, Eli's bank account read $0. Every pending deposit reversed. Every automatic payment declined. He stared at the screen, numb. Across town, Sienna Vale didn't raise her voice once. She didn't have to. By noon, Lena's inbox filled with cease and desist notices. Platforms flagged her accounts. One video disappeared, then another, then all of them, vanishing behind copyright claims filed faster than appeals could process. They're erasing me, Lena whispered over the phone. Eli closed his eyes. They're trying. At the hospital, Maya slept fitfully, her small hand curled around a plastic bracelet. Eli sat beside her bed when a nurse approached, hesitant, apologetic. Mr. Mercer, she said softly, billing needs to speak with you. He already knew what they'd say. In a downtown office tower, Sienna watched the damage spread from her tablet. Containment is working, her lawyer reported. By tomorrow, public interest will shift. Good, Sienna replied. Make sure the maintenance worker stays unemployed. He'll fold, the lawyer said. They always do. But Eli didn't fold. He walked into a small nonprofit office near the hospital that afternoon. One Lena's email had flagged the night before. No glass walls, no glamour, just photos of kids who'd survived because someone had spoken up at the right time. The director, an older woman with tired eyes, listened carefully. You don't need us, she said finally. You need momentum. Eli nodded. Then help me aim it. By evening, a new fundraiser went live. No celebrity face. No polished anthem, just Lena's raw recording. Eli's story. Maya's medical timeline, verified, transparent, undeniable. The goal was modest. The response wasn't. Donations trickled, then flowed, then surged. Sienna saw it trending just before midnight. Her jaw tightened. Shut it down. Her assistant hesitated. It's independent, different foundation. Sienna slammed her tablet down. Then smear it. But something had changed. People were reading now, cross-checking, listening. At 2:17 a.m., Eli's phone rang, hospital number. He answered with a held breath. We've secured temporary funding, Dr. Havorson said. Enough to proceed. Eli sagged into the chair. Thank you, but, she continued, this window won't stay open forever. Eli understood. Across the city, Sienna stood alone in her penthouse, staring at a city that no longer looked impressed. She made one last call. If they won't listen, she said quietly, we make them afraid. The next morning, Eli woke to a knock at the door. Two officers stood outside. Eli Mercer, one asked. You're being questioned in relation to last week's event. Behind them, cameras waited. The price of truth had come due. Eli faces legal pressure designed to break him, and Lena is forced to decide whether she's ready to step fully into the light. The interrogation room was smaller than Eli expected. No mirrors, no drama, just a metal table, two chairs, and a hum that made silence feel louder than shouting. The officers weren't cruel. That almost made it worse. We're just gathering facts, one of them said, clicking a pen, about the unauthorized playback, the disruption, the breach of contract claims. Eli folded his hands to keep them from shaking. I didn't touch the system. But you requested the track be isolated, the officer replied. On stage, publicly. Yes, Eli said, because the truth was buried in it. The second officer glanced up. Truth isn't a legal defense. Eli looked at the wall, thinking of Maya's hospital bracelet, of the fundraiser ticking upward, of Lena sitting somewhere alone with a choice she hadn't wanted. After 2 hours, they let him go. No charges. Not yet. Outside, the cameras surged forward. Do you regret what you did? Someone shouted. Eli stopped. He turned. No, he said. I regret how long it took. That clip spread faster than any denial. Across town, Lena stared at her reflection in a bathroom mirror. Her phone buzzed nonstop, requests, invitations, threats. One message stood out. Live performance offer. Verified venue. No backing tracks. Her hands trembled. She pressed her palms to the sink. I can't, she whispered to herself. I lost it. I lost that voice. But then she remembered the theater, the silence, the way the room had leaned in. It hadn't been perfection they wanted. It had been her. Lena called Eli. I'm scared, she said immediately. I know, he replied. They'll tear me apart. Maybe, Eli said, but they won't be able to pretend you don't exist. Silence stretched. Then Lena exhaled. I'll do it. The performance was scheduled for that night. No sponsors, no glitter, just a small hall and a single camera. Sienna watched the announcement from her office, jaw tight. She won't make it, she said. People don't come for broken voices. But they did. The room filled, the stream climbed. Lena stepped onto the stage with nothing but a mic and a stool. She closed her eyes and sang, not high, not perfect, but honest. Her voice carried scars and people heard themselves in them. At the hospital, Eli held Maya's hand and watched on his phone as donations surged again. At the song's end, the applause wasn't thunderous. It was steady, unstoppable. Sienna's assistant burst into the office. "We've got a problem." Sienna didn't look up. "We already had one." "No," the assistant said. "We've got an audit, federal. They're reopening the charity accounts." Sienna froze. For the first time, there was no move left to make. Only consequences. Eli looked at his sleeping daughter and felt something unfamiliar settle into his chest. Not relief. Not victory. Hope, quiet, fragile, and finally allowed to exist. The investigation reaches its peak, and Sienna is forced to face the truth she spent years running from. The audit didn't arrive with sirens or handcuffs. It arrived with emails, requests, subpoenas, polite language sharpened into something unmistakable. At 9 a.m., Sienna Vale sat across from 3 federal investigators in a neutral office that smelled faintly of copier toner and coffee gone cold. No cameras, no audience, no applause to lean on, just questions. "Miss Vale," one investigator said, fingers steepled, "can you explain why charitable funds were routed through 4 separate shell foundations before reaching hospitals?" Sienna crossed her legs carefully. "Standard financial buffering." "And why?" another investigator continued. "Performance enhancement expenses increased in direct correlation with your vocal decline." Sienna's jaw tightened. "That's subjective." The investigator slid a tablet across the table. On it, timelines, contracts, audio files, Lena's voice. Sienna didn't look away this time. "You built your brand on survival," the investigator said calmly. "But you survived by consuming other people's oxygen." Sienna laughed softly. "You don't understand the industry." "Then explain it to us," the investigator replied. For the first time in years, Sienna had no prepared answer. Across town, Eli sat in a hospital hallway while Maya underwent pre-op evaluations. The fundraiser had crossed its goal overnight. Messages of support flooded in, some clumsy, some beautiful, all real. Lena sat beside him, hands clasped, eyes fixed on the floor. "They're going to tear her down," she said quietly. Eli shook his head. "They're going to look." "That's worse," Lena replied. At noon, the news broke. Federal audit confirms misuse of charity funds. Singer's Foundation under investigation. Sienna watched it unfold alone. Her phone rang. This time, it wasn't a lawyer. It was her mother. "I warned you," the woman said softly. "You can't steal a voice and expect silence forever." Sienna closed her eyes. Memories surfaced. Her first lessons, her early failures, the moment her own voice began to falter and fear took over. She hadn't started as a villain. She'd started terrified, but terror left unchecked had teeth. At the hospital, Dr. Havorson approached Eli with a small smile. "We're cleared," she said. "Surgery is a go." Eli's knees nearly gave out. Lena covered her mouth, tears spilling freely. "She's going to be okay." "She has a very good chance," the doctor said. Eli exhaled a breath he'd been holding for years. That night, Lena received an email from the investigators. "Your cooperation has been noted." She forwarded it to Eli without comment. Across the city, Sienna stood in front of her bathroom mirror. No makeup, no lights, just herself, older than she remembered, smaller than she'd ever allowed. She whispered, "I just wanted to stay." The mirror didn't answer. For the first time, Sienna understood what she'd done. And for the first time, understanding didn't save her. Consequences fall publicly, and the final performance isn't about singing at all. The press conference was scheduled for noon, not at a theater, not at a venue built for applause, at a courthouse. Sienna arrived alone. No entourage, no stylist, no music swelling to announce her presence. Just a woman in a dark coat walking past microphones that once would have leaned toward her like flowers to the sun. Inside, the room filled quickly. Reporters, analysts, donors who wanted answers. The air felt heavy, expectant, stripped of glamour. When Sienna took the podium, there was no smile. She looked tired. "I won't be taking questions yet," she began, voice steady but unadorned. "This statement is mine alone." Cameras clicked. "For years, I told myself that what I was doing was necessary," she continued. "That the outcomes justified the methods. That saving lives excused shortcuts." A murmur rippled through the room. "I was wrong." The word landed harder than any denial could have. I used a voice that wasn't mine, Sienna said. I hid behind contracts instead of conscience, and I allowed fear to become policy. Some reporters glanced at each other, surprised. I won't pretend this confession erases harm, she added. It doesn't, but it ends the pretending. She stepped back from the podium. No applause followed, just the sound of pens moving fast. At the hospital, Eli watched the live feed from a plastic chair while a nurse adjusted Maya's IV. His daughter was pale but smiling, brave in the way only children could be. "Is that the lady?" Maya asked softly. "Yes," Eli said. "She's telling the truth," Maya thought for a moment. "Is that hard?" Eli smiled sadly. "Sometimes harder than lying." Down the hall, Lena sat with her phone off, staring at her hands. She hadn't been invited to the press conference. She didn't need to be. Her voice had already been heard. By evening, sponsors issued statements. Some apologized. Others vanished quietly. The foundation was placed under independent management. Funds were redirected, tracked, audited. Not perfect, but real. Sienna's resignation followed shortly after, brief, factual, irreversible. She released no farewell album, no final performance. Her last appearance wasn't a song, it was accountability. That night, Eli sat beside Meyer as she slept, machines humming gently. He checked the fundraiser one last time. It had exceeded its goal, again. He closed the app. Lena stood in the doorway. "She said your name," she said quietly. Eli looked up. "What?" In the statement, she thanked an ordinary man who refused to stay quiet. Eli shook his head. "I wasn't ordinary, I was desperate." Lena smiled faintly. "That's usually where courage starts." Outside, the city moved on, already searching for its next spectacle. But something had shifted beneath the noise, an expectation, a memory. That voices could be checked. That silence could be broken. That power didn't get the last note by default. Eli took Maya's hand and felt her grip tighten just a little. Tomorrow would be surgery. Tomorrow would be fear again. But tonight, the truth had done what it was always meant to do. It had made space. The final chapter, Maya goes into surgery, and Eli learns that some victories aren't loud, but they last. If you've made it this far, stay with me. And if this story moved you even a little, share it with someone who needs to hear it, because the loudest truths don't always shout. Sometimes they survive. The hospital hallway was too bright for 5 a.m. Eli sat with his back against the wall, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles ached. Maya lay on the gurney beside him, wrapped in a blanket printed with faded stars. Her eyes were open, calm in a way that terrified him more than tears ever could. "You'll be right here when I wake up?" she asked. "I won't move," Eli said. "Not an inch," she nodded, satisfied. "Okay." The surgical team arrived, gentle, efficient, practiced at carrying hope without promising it. As they began to wheel Maya away, she lifted her hand. "Daddy," she said. Eli leaned close. "You did the right thing," she whispered, as if it were a secret she needed him to keep. His throat closed. He could only nod. When the doors swung shut, the hallway felt suddenly enormous and empty. Lena arrived an hour later, 2 cups of bad coffee in her hands. She sat beside Eli without speaking, understanding that this was a silence that shouldn't be filled. "I almost didn't come," she said eventually. "Felt like I didn't deserve to." Eli shook his head. "You're part of why she's in there." Lena stared at the floor. "I spent years thinking my voice was over." "And now?" Eli asked. She smiled faintly. "Now I think it was just waiting for the right reason." The hours crawled. News alerts buzzed and faded. Online debates flared and moved on. The world did what it always did, consumed, reacted, forgot. But here time narrowed to a single door. Finally, footsteps approached. Dr. Havorson stopped in front of them. Eli stood so fast his chair scraped loudly across the floor. "She's through," the doctor said. Eli held his breath. "The repair went as planned," she continued. Her heart responded beautifully. Eli felt the weight in his chest collapse into something unrecognizable. "Can we see her?" Lena asked softly. "Soon," the doctor said. "She's strong." When Eli finally sat by Maya's bed, machines humming steadily now, he watched her sleep with a peace he had never known. Not relief, something deeper. Earned. Days later, the world moved on completely. Sienna's name faded from headlines. New scandals took its place. The internet found new targets, but the foundation remained restructured, transparent. More children were approved for treatment. More parents slept in hospital chairs with a little less fear. Lena sang again, not everywhere, not all the time, just where it mattered. Her voice was different now, but it was hers. Eli returned to work eventually, not as a janitor at the Orpheum, but as a facilities supervisor at the hospital. It paid less than silence would have. It paid more than fear. One evening, Maya asked, "Will people remember what you did?" Eli thought for a moment. "Probably not," he said honestly. She smiled. "That's okay. I will." And that was enough. If this story reminded you that truth doesn't need permission, and that even quiet people can change loud systems, like, share, and follow, because stories like this only live as long as we keep telling them.